do your thing here, bud. Nobody's any better at this than you are.
Have fun, take a deep breath.
Give them hell at the end. Good luck to you.
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here.
Brett, be affirmative.
You told me to get on.
Info. Ready. Ready. Go slow. Green, green, green. Lock it down, lock it down.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. What the f*** is he thinking? That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate. Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Hell yeah.
11 got it. Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
10-4, great job, guys.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark. Welcome to Sunday morning Talladega style. Oh, yesterday's race was quite interesting if you happened to watch. 3 overtimes and lots of torn up race cars and lots of carnage. But that's what's to be expected when we head to Talladega. They're packed up in a group, and usually they end up wrecking each other. They always find a way. Never seems to amaze me that these guys just can't run in straight lines. But, you know, they struggle to do that. But either way, racing in the draft at Talladega style. Last spring's winner, Brad Keselowski. Boy, is he in desperate need of a win today. Maybe. He does really well here. He's got 6 total wins to his credit here at Dega. Let's take a look at Talladega real quick. We're at the GEICO 500 here at Talladega Super Speedway. Track length is 2.66 miles, the longest oval on the Nascar circuit, 33 degrees in the turns, super high banked. The race length today is scheduled for 188 laps. More than likely, we will go over that. Dominator points, which probably are not that much of a concern today, of 131.6, coming from laps led of 47 and fast laps of 84.6. Fast laps will be spread out across the entire field, 39 drivers, and you'll probably see at least every driver have at least 1, if not 2, fast laps. So fast lap points won't mean a heck of a lot today. Laps led will factor in a little bit, but place differential and finishing positions are what ideally we are looking for. Mostly place differential, with finishing position second. For my comparison tracks, we've added Atlanta to this mix, even though they've only raced once on the new configuration at Atlanta, but it does end up being very similar to a super speedway, pack racing, lots of different people with fast laps. Dominator points really don't matter, and typically the carnage is quite severe. So finding the right guys to start towards the back and get to the front will be what we're looking for. All right, let's get right into our breakdown of our drivers. So if you happen to catch the video on Friday, this is very similar but slightly different. We now have included the starting position in the middle, right underneath their pricing. And I have gone back and reworked my algorithms, and this is kind of their power index, or where I potentially think they should be, and then how much of a percentage that I am running. This is not an exact percentage, it is just a roundabout thing, because you should be figuring out what you need to run for your lineups today. And this can translate over to NASCAR's fantasy, which is not paid, no money, but more for bragging rights. But Ryan Blaney still should be somebody we highly are looking at either way. And so Ryan Blaney, they did not have any practice. Practice at super speedways they found is pretty much a waste of time, other than they get to kind of go out and shake their car down, but they don't race it in packs. They don't, do any testing. The only place that they do lots of testing and practice would be Daytona for the very first race, because they put a bunch of different things in the cars, especially this year with the next gen car. So they skipped on practice for both Xfinity and Cup today, just to avoid any possibility of anybody tearing a car up or having a flat tire and having to go get their backup car out. So pretty much put the cars on the track, go qualify, run 2 laps, and let's see where they line up. Ryan Blaney, he was middle of the pack, 22nd, which gives us a decent amount of place differential upside, or as you will hear me say, PD upside. That will be the short term that I will pretty much say the rest of the video. So place differential is if they start in 22nd and he happens to win, that's 21 place differential points, and Draftkings gives 1 point per place difference. So if somebody's starting at the pole in first and finishes 22nd, they've got negative 21 points. And when you're talking about only 60 points making the optimal lineup, 21 points is a lot of points. So finding the drivers who run well at super speedways have a tendency to miss what they call the big one and end up finishing in the top 5 or top 10 is going to be what you want to try to find. So Ryan Blaney starting 22nd, lots of PD upside, or decent amount of PD upside play here, with also the potential of at least a top 5, if not potentially getting himself a win. He's been fast at all of these larger tracks. He had a little bit of a rough go on the short tracks this year, but 1.5 miles plus, Ryan Blaney has definitely been in the hunt for the win. Hasn't gotten one yet this year. Today may be his day. So definitely have him in a decent amount of my lineups. Hey, do me a favor, if you join the stream, either live or recorded, and you've got any questions, thoughts, concerns, whatever, hit me up in the chat. I'll be more than happy to try to at least give you my advice. And remember, it's free advice, so don't hate the free advice. It is just exactly what it is. So hit me up in the chat. Make sure you hit that like button, and if you like to see more content, make sure you hit subscribe. And I post my pre-qualifying videos typically on either Thursday or Friday, and then I try to do a live either Saturday night or Sunday morning after they've done their qualifying, and I break down kind of what you're going to do today. So I'm not going to go into in-depth details on their past history. You can kind of see that, or you can go back and watch the Friday pre-qualifying video for more detailed on their past history here and at other super speedways or other similar type tracks. But either way, Ryan Blaney is the most expensive at $10,500. You're not going to have to worry about pricing today. There are plenty of drivers that we can take that are less expensive, easily fit whatever lineup you need. And as you will see once we get into looking at the last comparisons, typically you don't want to spend everything. So we'll get into that in just a few minutes. Next in line here, Joey Logano, $10,300, starting 13th, 8th on the power ranking. And I do have him in 40 to 45% of my lineups. Joey Logano has also been very, very consistent this year. And a lot of these percentages that I have, anybody that's in the top 10 of the algorithm is going to be somebody that you want to target. But, a lot of it also goes into just watching lots of races over the years and kind of seeing how these guys end up finishing. I do have a little bit more ownership of Joey Logano than I do Ryan Blaney. That's just an absolute gut feeling that I have. No other reason. But, when we're talking the difference between a 35 and a 45% of my lineups, that's still a lot of exposure to both of these guys. They also both race for Ford, which will be key. Most of the manufacturers will stick together. They will draft together. They will push each other to wins. And then also Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano both also race for Penske. So you've got some, you want to look at some of the teams and stacking teams. I don't recommend fully stacking teams because a lot of times they do stick together, but a lot of times I do like to stack more manufacturers than I do teams. So, I'll stack a group of Fords together, I'll stack a group of Chevys, or stack a group of Toyotas. And Ford and Chevy outweigh Toyota by a ton. So, typically the Ford drivers are going to help a Ford driver, and vice versa. Chevy will help Chevy. Now, once you get down to that final lap, it's every man for himself and every manufacturer for themselves. They're just going for a win at that point. But you got to get there. You got to get to that last lap to be in contention. Next in line, Kyle Larson, 10,100, who might be the worst driver on super speedways. And I'd say that facetious. And I mean, I'm a huge fan. I've been a huge fan for 15 years. Love watching him on the dirts, and just naturally pulled to him when he came into NASCAR. But either way, Kyle Larson just has the worst luck, I think, of any driver, maybe next to Martin Truex Jr., when it comes to super speedway racing and finishes. So Kyle Larson starting fifth, number one, no real PD upside play here. There is a potential that if he can actually make it to the end of one of these things, he can finish. So starting fifth, it definitely does not make me want to think about putting him in many of my lineups. As you can see, I have him in less than 5% of my lineups. All right, next in line here, Chase Elliott, 9,900, starting 28th. Hey, look at there, lots of PD upside. Chase Elliott also runs very well at restrictor plates, or what they call super speedways. They're really not restrictor plates anymore. They just tune the cars a little differently. But either way, 35 to 40%. He's number 2 on my power ranking now. So I'll have a decent amount of ownership of Chase Elliott. Tyler Reddick, starting 10th, 9,700. Not bad. I expect Tyler to potentially finish in the top 10 if he can keep himself out of trouble. And trouble, you just don't ever know. I mean, literally, these guys could be racing up in the top third line. Something happened in the bottom line that's absolutely no cause of their own. And the next thing you know, they're in the middle of what we call the big one. So it's all luck in a lot of ways. Now, some of it's position. If you're typically out in first, typically you're going to stay pretty clean. But all it takes is one person to get to that rear bumper, and around you go, and you take out the entire field. So that's why sometimes you see a lot of these drivers, the BJ McLeods, Cody Ware, and those types of guys, they will run in a pack of 4 or 5 that will literally stay on the lead lap, but they'll be 10, 15 seconds away from the lead pack. And when the big one breaks out, they've got plenty of time to react, and they end up moving up 10 spots just because of the big one happens. And then they just kind of hold there until the final 2 laps, and then they'll kind of mix it up. But even then, sometimes they just go, nope, we're just going to sit right here and let the next big one happen, or let 2 or 3 more cars have issues on that final lap, and they'll end up with a top 20. Now, a lot of times those guys are not going to be in your optimal lineup, but they potentially could get you into cash play. Let's keep rolling on here. William Byron, 9,600, starting 8th. Decent super speedway racer. Seems to always at least keep himself a little bit cleaner. Now, last fall, he did not. He and the Chevy / Hendrick camp all ended up wadding themselves up together. Like I said, you run together, you wreck together. But starting 8th, he does come in at 7th on my power ranking. And once again, I just have a feeling that I think Team Chevy just doesn't quite have the speed on these super speedways. I think Ford works better together at the super speedways. We saw this in Daytona. But I'm not absolutely not taking any of William Byron. I've got 5 to 10% ownership on him, and most of that is going to be when I've got Chevy lineups running. So I do have a little bit of ownership of William. Kyle Busch, 9,400, starting 12th. He's probably really the only, other than maybe his brother Kurt, are the only Toyotas who seem to just at least end up having decent finishes. And Kurt's had a little struggles this year also, but Kyle is probably the top Toyota to actually end up finishing races on a consistently weekly basis. Starting 12th, not a ton of PD upside play here. I do think Kyle could potentially get himself into a top 5, top 3 position. And he consistently does that. So I do have, 10 to 15% ownership, and he is ranked 16th after qualifying. Alex Bowman, 9,200, starting 27th. I like the PD upside play here for Alex, much differently than the potential downside PD of William Byron. Power rank of 11th, so I'm got him in 35 to 40%. I think he and Chase Elliott may team up together and work their way to the front, or at least hook up with each other and get themselves in a decent finishing position. Denny Hamlin, man, Denny, if bad luck were a good thing, Denny would be having a great year. But bad luck is not a good thing in NASCAR, and he's having an awful year. I mean, just awful. 9,100. I mean, Denny's one of the best super speedway racers on the NASCAR circuit currently, but because of the bad luck, until that bad luck turns around, it's the same thing that happened with Stewart Haas Racing last year. That bug has bitten Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing this year. I mean, Denny did get himself a win at Richmond, but that was kind of luck in a lot of ways and a lot of strategy play. That was not because Denny ended up having a fast car. He had a fast car at the end because he put new tires on, but Denny was not in any real contention all day long at Richmond to get that win. The same thing with Kyle Busch getting his win last week at the dirt on Bristol. He kind of backed into that when first and second place guy wrecked. I mean, he was 3.5, 4 seconds behind and ended up backing into a win. So Toyota's still got some issue or bug going on with this next gen car. I don't know if it's aerodynamics. Doesn't appear to be, because they all qualified really, really well. But that kind of scares me too, because there's no PD upside play, and we start looking at optimal lineups. Very few people in the top 10 ever make the optimal lineup. That doesn't mean you can't win in some of these tournaments, but you're going to need some PD upside help, and Toyota's not giving you that this weekend. Brad Keselowski here at 8,900, running a Ford. Now, they do have an alliance with Penske, and he did race with Penske last year, so I expect Brad to hook up with his teammates and Ford cars and probably be there. Now, Brad needs to win more than anybody, so he's going to be pushy. He's always pushy when it comes to these super speedway races, and that does one or two things. Either he wins or he wrecks himself in half the field. So it's a coin toss with Brad. He's 10th on the power ranking. I've got him in 30 to 35% of my lineups. All right, next in line here, Chase Briscoe. Hey, make sure you do me a favor. If you've got any questions, thoughts, or whatever, make sure you hit me up in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you got. Let me know that you're here. And also, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Next in line here, Chase Briscoe, 8,800, starting 17th. Also in a Ford with Stewart Haas Racing. So he's got quite a few teammates to partner up with, and also the Ford camp to partner up with. Starting 17th, he's got some PD upside here. And Chase Briscoe has been one of the most consistent drivers all year long, finishing in the top 5, or at least running in the top 5. So I think Chase Briscoe will continue, just as Denny's had bad luck, Chase Briscoe's had some pretty good luck until he ran out of talent at the dirt in Bristol. But he admittedly knew he was running out of talent when he sent that thing into turn 3. But either way, Chase Briscoe, 4th on the power ranking. I've got him in 30 to 35% lineups. I think he's definitely a good play for at least a top 5, if not potentially the win. Kevin Harvick here, a teammate of Chase Briscoe at Stewart Haas, 8,600, starting 24th. Lots of PD upside potential here with Kevin. Now, Kevin's had kind of the bad luck bug as Denny has, but Kevin's actually been a little bit better, and I think Ford is going to be the manufacturer to beat here at Talladega this weekend. Power ranked at 6th. I've got him in 20 to 25% of my lineups. Christopher Bell, 8,400. Hey, you had the fastest lap, but you're starting first, and you're racing in a Toyota. I think you're going to go out and you're going to lead a few laps at the beginning, but I think by the stage break, you're you're going to the back, and not to the back. I mean, if he finishes 12th, that's not going to be enough to get you in the optimal lineup, and probably not even into a real cash situation. So I have no interest in anybody in pretty much the top 8. So 0% ownership of Christopher Bell, 35th on my power rankings because of it. His teammate Martin Truex Jr. starting on the outside of the pole, 8,300, starting second. Number one, he always seems to run okay at super speedways, but never great. So 32nd on the power ranking, I have no ownership of Martin Truex. Bubba Wallace, 8,100, starting ninth. Now, Bubba is probably as good of a super speedway racer as anybody. It's really his cup of tea. It's where he won here in the fall race last year. Now, that was a rain-shortened race, but he was consistently running up front, and he finished second in Daytona earlier this year. Bubba Wallace is a good super speedway racer. So even starting ninth, I've got him in 10 to 15% of my lineups. Not a lot of PD upside play here, but if Bubba can get himself into a top 5 situation, it could easily be something that, because I think he'll make a lead some laps also. So I don't mind Bubba Wallace here. Don't mind if you have more exposure of him than I do, but either way, I'll have 10 to 15% exposure. Austin Cindric, our Daytona 500 winner earlier this year at a super speedway, 7,700, starting 18th. He's in that Penske Ford, so I expect the Penske's and the Fords to be very quick and work together all the way to the end. So I expect Austin Cindric to possibly be there towards the end. 22nd on the power ranking, and I'll have him in 10 to 15 lineups. Ross Chastain, who has just been having a stellar year, kind of like Chase Briscoe. You can also put Tyler Reddick into that group. Just been consistently running up front all weekend. I don't expect anything different this time around for Ross. He's having a great year, and when you're having a great year, you ride that bandwagon. So 7,700 for Ross, starting 19th. Some PD upside play here. 5th on the power ranking. I've got him in 20 to 25% of lineups. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is, you've got guys that run well at super speedways, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is no stranger to running well at super speedways, and especially at Talladega. 7,600, starting 26th. Really good PD upside potential here with Ricky. Now the problem with Ricky is he's either kind of like Brad. He's either records or checkers. There's no real in between for Ricky. So he's either going to run top 3 or he's going to run 33rd and be in the garage watching this thing. So I do have him in 20-25% of my lineups, mostly because he's got a decent amount of PD upside play. Same here with Eric Almirola, coming from the Ford camp also. Stuart Haas, 7,500, starting 23rd. 9th on the power ranking, and he runs just really well at super speedways. 35% ownership, and that might be a little on the low side. Kurt Busch, coming out of Toyota, and Joe Gibbs. We've already talked about their issues and troubles. 7,400. I mean, he's coming out of 2311, but realistically, that's a sister company, Joe Gibbs. All the Toyota cars are all pretty much manufactured and done out of the same place. 7,400, starting 6th. I think I have him in like 2 lineups out of 40. 0 to 5% interest. I just don't like his starting spot. Kurt's a decent super speedway racer, but I'm going to fade him. Austin Dillon, 7,200. I just wish Austin had started a little bit further back. I don't think the PD upside here is much to talk about. I think Austin Dillon could easily find himself. He's won at super speedways at Daytona before. He's not quite as consistent here, but as you see, his average finish is 15.2. Starting 14th, I think he could vie for a top 10 spot, and he could even get himself up further, but I've got him in 5 to 10% of my lineups, and 25th on that power ranking. Daniel Suarez, great qualifying lap, Daniel, but the problem is you don't run that well at super speedways. $7,000. I have 0% interest in taking any of Daniel Suarez. He could surprise us all and win it all, but no, not any interest in Daniel Suarez. Even if he wins this thing starting 4th, there will be guys that will start 36th, that will finish 10th, that will outpoint Daniel Suarez. So, no, not really interested. Chris Buescher, I mean, here's a perfect example. 6,900, starting 30th. He runs better than Daniel. He's priced cheaper than Daniel. His average finish is 11.8 at Talladega. Yeah, I'm much more interested in taking Chris Buescher over Daniel Suarez all day long, and I guarantee that Chris Buescher will outpoint him if both of them finish in the top 5. So I'll have 30 to 35% ownership, 12th on the power ranking. All right, next in line here, Michael McDowell, 6,800, starting 21st. 10 to 15% ownership. Michael McDowell is a great super speedway racer. Won last year's Daytona 500. Always consistently runs in the top 10. Typically keeps himself out of trouble. I expect him to do the same. Got some PD upside potential here with Michael. I've got him in 10 to 15% of my lineups. Eric Jones, 6,600. Eric's an unusual one. He runs fairly well at super speedways. As you see, his 15.4 average finish over the last 5 here at Talladega. I've got him in 5 to 10%. I don't know, just a gut feeling. I mean, he probably should be in more of my lineups, but it's a gut feeling at this point on Eric. I wouldn't think of anything differently if somebody had 20, 25% ownership of Eric Jones. But I do like the Harrison Burton play better here, even though we don't have a lot of data from Harrison, but he did finish 20th in the race last spring. So Harrison Burton, 6,500, starting 25th. I mean, he was running super well at Daytona when Brad Keselowski pushed him out of the way and wrecked half the field. So if Harrison can keep himself clean, I think he could easily get himself into a top 10 spot or even better. So I like some Harrison Burton. I'll have 10 to 15% ownership, 14th on the power ranking. Daniel Hemrick, super fast qualifying lap, Daniel. And a decent super speedway racer, but starting third. And even if you finish third, I mean, you might be able to win some cash lineups, but you're not winning any tournaments. So 6,300, 39th on the power ranking. I think he kind of gets eaten up here at this track. I think he ends up finishing further in the back, if not way back. So no real PD upside play here. No real consistent finishing upside here. So 0% interest in Daniel Hemrick. Todd Gilliland, 6,200. Now, the 38 car is a Ford car, partnered with Michael McDowell. Todd's actually really good at super speedways in the truck series. We don't really have a whole lot of data on him in the Cup series. So he comes in 29th because of that on my power ranking, but I just have a good feeling that Todd Gilliland's going to end up having a decent day. I think he misses some of the carnage, and I think he ends up having a pretty good finish. So I've got him in 10 to 15% of my lineups. I like the PD upside potential of Todd. Ty Dillon, 6,100. Always seems to run well at super speedways. Starting 20th, I wish he was starting a little bit further back, but starting 20th, I'm okay with it. I do have him. I did fade him more than I probably should, but it's a gut feeling. I don't like where he's starting. I think he can get himself into a top 15, maybe into a top 10. I mean, yeah, 10 spots probably might be enough to get him in the optimal lineup, depending on what else happens today. But I think it's too risky with Ty today. So I faded off Ty, but I would not argue with anybody if they had heavy ownership on Ty. Maybe Todd Dillon's the one that bites me this week. I hope not. I hope my gut feelings are correct, and I've done fairly well at super speedways in Draftkings. So we'll see. David Reagan. Oh boy, I hope David Reagan ends up having a good day, because he is absolutely my favorite to potentially have himself a top 5 finish. I even put a little money for him to win. He's 20,000. What does that end up being? 200 to 1 to win. So I put a couple of dollars for him to win. I'll be pretty happy if he wins, but I'll also be pretty shocked if he wins. But I also think David Reagan, I mean, he finished top 10 at Daytona earlier this year in that car, and he really is very smart when it comes to super speedway racing. He does have a win here at Talladega. He knows how to drive this track. He knows how to find the front. I'm very, very heavy on David Reagan. If David Reagan has a bad day, I'm going to have a bad day. Next in line here, Justin Haley. Colin cars were fast. Problem is, I don't like fast in qualifying. it does not translate typically well to fast in the race. So I starting 11th. I do have 5 to 10% ownership. And Justin, he's won a bunch in Xfinity. He has won a Cup race on a super speedway. It's his only win on a super speedway. So I mean, can he possibly vie for a win? Absolutely. Can he finish top 5? Absolutely. Does that compare to 36th place coming up and finishing in the top 5? Not even close. It won't. The points will be 15 to 20 points difference. So I like Justin Haley. I just don't like his PD downside. Cole Custer here, 5,600, starting 29th. I've got him in 5 to 10% of my laps. I like the PD upside play here. I like that he's driving a Ford. Cole just seems to always have issues. Whether he is the issue or is part of somebody else's issue. Until Cole Custer's luck turns around, it's kind of like Denny Hamlin. I'm just going to fade him. I wouldn't argue with anybody starting 29th. That's great PD upside play. Next in line here, Noah Gragson, our Xfinity winner yesterday, and he looked really good all day long. Kept himself out of trouble. My only question is, did he party really, really hard at the Boulevard last night, or did he kind of tone it down a little bit? But either way, 15 to 20% ownership, 23rd on the power ranking. So I've got a decent amount of ownership in Noah. We'll see how hungover he is. Now he's a young kid and he likes to party, so he'd be probably perfectly fine. Corey LaJoy, 5,200, starting 33rd. I mean, he does pretty well here at super speedways. Typically runs in the back, waits for all the carnage to happen, then towards the end he kind of puts himself into a spot to get a top 20 finish. So I've got 5 to 10% ownership on Corey LaJoy. I'm not fading him out completely, but typically he is not the fastest car in full races. Same thing here with JJ Yaley, starting 38th. This is a gut play. I faded off JJ Yaley starting 38th. Just don't know how good of a car he's going to have and where he finishes. So now the group in the back, Landon Castle starting 39th. I'm very heavy on Landon. Landon's a really good plate racer or super speedway racer. Always seems to find his way to the front. Always seems to stay out of trouble. If Landon Castle or David Reagan have bad days, or both of them take each other out, my day is screwed, to say the least. But I'm heavy on Landon Castle. He's starting dead last on the field. In fact, I think he even has some penalties. I think he's got to do a drive-through penalty. But that won't matter because he'll get his lap back pretty quickly, and he'll get himself into the top 20 as long as he's not involved in the big one. Now going through here, I have no interest in Greg Biffle. I don't have any interest in Cody Ware, even with their PD upside, they just don't typically have the cars. Or BJ McLeod typically does end up having a car that's fast enough to get into the top 25, top 20. So I do have a small amount of ownership. I mean, like 2 lineups with BJ. Nowhere near, 4,600 to 4,900 having a Landon Castle compared to a BJ McLeod. I'll take the 2 extra PD upsides and the $300 difference. Like I said, money is not the issue this week at all. It's finding the PD upside, finding the finishing position, and finding that driver that is going to make the optimal lineup. So with that being said, our optimal lineups, as you see, no dominators in the fall of 21, 5 place differential guys, and 3 guys that finished in the top 5. Same thing in the spring of 21, we had 5 place differential guys, 4 guys that finished in the top 5 that made the optimal lineup. Same thing I've been repeating the entire show so far. The fall of 20, no dominators. All 6 were place differentials. 3 guys ended up in the top 5. We didn't even have the first place guy because it was Denny Hamlin, who started from the pole, ended up winning from the pole, didn't lead a whole lot of laps, but found his way back to the front. And as you see, he didn't even make the optimal lineup. In fact, he was, if I remember correctly, 20 points off Ty Dillon's score. So, yeah, I mean, getting the first place guy is big, but they've got to have some PD upside to help them, or they just don't make the optimal lineup. I'm not saying that in that lineup there, if you had taken Justin Haley out and put Denny Hamlin in, that you wouldn't have cashed. You would have cashed. You would have cashed probably pretty heavy, but you wouldn't have won the first spot. That's what the optimal lineup gets you. The spring of 20, We had 1-ish Dominators with Ryan Blaney leading 63 laps, and then 6 place differentials. I mean, anybody that moved up over 10 spots, I put him as a place differential guy. We had 4 guys that finished in the top 5. And look at that, $5,000 left over, $8,700 left over, $5,900 left over, $3,000 left over. And then that is consistent on every super speedway we go to. You're better off just putting your cap at like 4,700 and working your way through your lineups that way. Dominators, no, we don't have any Dominators. Take that out. That's a misprint. So place differential guys. I love Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, David Reagan, Chase Briscoe, Ross Chastain, Kevin Harvick. Then you can come over here. Eric Almirola starting 23rd, Alex Bowman starting 27th, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. starting 26th, Landon Castle starting 39th. Put lineups together, mix and match all those guys in this group. I mean, you've got 13 guys that are place differentials at the top of this thing. If you end up having to need some salary relief, go down here to Harrison Burton, Michael McDowell, Noah Gregson, Justin Haley. Yeah, I mean, I don't love his starting spot, but I think Justin ends up finishing well. Then if you need to find one potential guy that's going to start towards the front and finish up front, you just think you need one in there, William Byron, I think, is a potential great pick. Kyle Reddick, Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, Kyle Busch are all potentials. And because Austin won the Daytona 500, I put him in there just for giggles. Either way, that is my wrap up. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, hit them up in the chat. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Good luck today, Talladega. It's going to be hot. It's going to be slick. It's going to be fun to watch. I feel bad for the car owners, and I pray that all the drivers make sure they got those belts buckled and tightened up and ready to go, because I think a third of the field ends up having wrecked cars. But that's typical. Either way, good luck today. And Draftkings, thanks for joining me on this video. Once again, if you have any questions, hit me up in the chat. Have a great Sunday, and good luck at Talladega. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W's, so got to be around at the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby! Hell yeah! Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work. Keep putting yourself in position. We'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job. Great job, guys. Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal, we got it here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away.
Yeah, boy. Way to rebound. Great job. Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend. What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.